Okay, we are on Bard, which is Google's ChatGPT, and today we are going to discuss the top 2 questions that people ask our team, which is, number 1, how do you get people to trust these AI models, these AI interfaces? And second, how do you get people to engage with them? Now, this is a big question, so I'm not going to pretend that we are going to touch all things or solve everything, but I hopefully will offer a few ideas. So the first thing we're going to look at is just a simple query like, give me mortgage rates. And as you can see, we got some mortgage rates. And so we are going to then, and by the way, if you look at this is a pretty clean page. There actually aren't any ads or sponsors here. Contrast that to, when you search Google, give me mortgage rates, you are getting a lot of sponsored ads. And then we finally get down to the actual result. And it seems, it is different than what Bard said. So Bard said 7. And when I looked at this the first time, I said, benefit of the doubt, these dates are different. Are we sure? And asked Bard to basically gut check and say, are you sure? Let's check the 28th. And lo and behold, they are still different. And so this is this is the conundrum by which we want to ask questions to the seemingly almighty knowledge center, and yet we don't know what we can or can't trust. And you kind of feel for the engineers, the AI engineers at these apps, because a lot of it you can trust, and it's pretty amazing. Like, it's incredible that we can get these answers, and yet not knowing, having the uncertainty about what you can or cannot trust decreases trust in the whole system. I don't know if you saw that Google stock wildly dropped for one very small error that it made, and yet it's such an impressive system, and one small thing can decrease our certainty and then decrease our confidence. And so what is a designer or AI engineer to do? Well, I think there's one very core kind of low-hanging fruit problem. One is that Bard does tell us very clearly, look, I won't always get it right, but your feedback will help me improve. So this is nice education. It's just at the wrong time. When do you want it? You actually want it, we call it, or the field of behavioral science tends to call it just-in-time education, where you're putting it in the moment of decision-making for the consumer. And so if you could do it again, if Google could kind of redesign this, they would make it feel as if this statement is true. Look, we won't always get it right. Maybe there's some confidence meter. Maybe there's, they say you can give your feedback, but how would you give feedback? Where in this page is there for me to actually give feedback? And so they're signaling, their implicit signals here by having this not be editable, not say who it's from, is that they are fully correct. And so it's then not surprising that we get so angry if something is slightly off, because even though they've told us over there, in the moment, it feels as if, they're an overconfident doctor telling you have a diagnosis, and you're like, oh gosh, really? And if it comes back that it's not correct, you're going to be very upset. The next thing we'll talk about is engagement. How would you get somebody to engage with these text-based, chat-based AI conversational models? Now, of course, in the future, this may not be the mental model that people have of engaging with generative AI, but it is what we have today. And so how do we do it? And I'm here to say that this is probably not the way. So the number one rule in behavioral science and in any kind of behavior change effort is to make it easy. So at Irrational Labs, we have the 3B model of behavior change. You pick a behavior you want, you reduce barriers to that behavior, and then you increase benefits, immediate benefits. And we don't do anything if the barriers are too high. If it's too hard for people, it's really difficult to get them to do anything. And so in our lens here, we say, how would we make it easier for people to engage? And the first thing you see here is the words enter a prompt, like enter a prompt. Now, tactically, it's actually not that difficult. You just start typing like we've all typed. It's actually cognitively difficult because what do I type? So it's a very abstract idea here. We once actually removed an open text field from a conversion flow and increased page-over-page conversion by 40%. It wasn't that people didn't want to continue, it was just they didn't want to answer this question. And so cognitive friction is real. And so the question is, how do you reduce this? Well, it turns out that Google actually knows the answer to this because they have solved it. So this is Google, and they are giving me a choice. They are making a recommendation on what to do next. Calculate your monthly payment. Wow, amazing. Nailed it. And so really the promise of generative AI models, hopefully, is to recognize some of my intent and then help me act on that. And so it is likely that I'm not just, a finance person measuring interest rates day over day. Is likely to have some other intent here. And the good news is that the models should be able to help me fulfill that intent. And so That's also why I'm optimistic about these models in general, is that while the UX and UI may not be there, it is likely that it is possible for it to get there, even more than just, this idea of calculate my monthly payment. It could help me potentially go farther and apply to a loan or apply to multiple loans. By the way, that is a hack that most people, just get quotes from one bank. Well, if you were to get quotes from multiple banks, you'd likely get a lower rate. And so why don't we get quotes from multiple banks? Well, it's difficult. We don't want to fill out all that form and all those paperwork. And so AI does have this really nice promise of making things easier for us on a day-to-day basis. I will mention one other thing. There was a nice study a while ago that basically looked at how do you help parents really get vaccines for their children. And they changed just one thing about how the doctor was asking, which was instead of do you want the vaccine or not, the doctor just said, when can I make your next appointment? And of course, the parents could still opt out. That was possible. But the implicit default was to move them along and have them make an appointment. It really was like anchoring also on the norms of saying this is just what the next step is, either credibility, authority bias, or just social norms is what everyone else is doing. But making it really easy to move along. And I think that's kind of maybe the light bulb or the insight here is that Bard can make it easy for me to take the next step. But this is not going to do it. And so the hope and change is that it is possible, but we're not there yet.